Welcome to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. Use the power of discovering new habits to create success in all areas of life. Body, fitness and nutrition, being, spirituality, passion and purpose, balance, marriage, kids and relationships, business, marketing, sales, leadership and systems. Transform your life by learning how habits work. And now your host, a husband, father, entrepreneur, trainer, coach, and warrior, Jesse Ewell.
Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Jesse Ewell, and today we're going to be talking about the habit of unwritten expectations or unwritten rules. Now, today I want to kind of brief you guys on this episode because you may be thinking about unwritten rules, but one of the things that I want to talk about today is what happened this morning as I was surfing. And so this morning I went surfing at Doheny Beach. We're down in Dana Point, California, where it's about 10 to 12 minutes from my house. I live in San Clemente, but it's one of the spots that I go to regularly to go surfing. But I've really started to enjoy this and actually go 3 to 4 times a week. And I've been doing this for about 10 to 12 weeks, but it's one of my favorite ways to wake up in the morning. It's one of my favorite ways to just like work out. And one of the things that I like about it is the water, you know, the temperature, and just the feeling you get when you get done. But one of the things that I've started to notice is the more and more I go, there's these unwritten rules. There's these unwritten rules, you know, they come up in any sport, but it almost kind of becomes the culture when you choose to do a new sport. It's like you don't know about these unwritten rules. And then the more you play the sport, the more you understand it, the more you start learning what these are. And what I've started to notice is, you know, you get a lot of times it's these looks. You know, you get the look like, dude, this is my wave. I own it. I took it, you know, don't come on this. But one thing that happened this morning was as I was surfing, I watched a gentleman, he wrecked, and I watched his board literally fly out probably about 20 feet. And I watched this older gentleman, he was probably about 65, 70 years old. But I watched him, like this board was like a missile. I watched him literally get taken out in the back of the head by the board. And then not only that, I watched him get rolled up in the wave and the board, and he got drug in about 20 to 30 feet. But I noticed him when it first hit him, and so I started to follow him just to see if he was okay. And as I got closer to him, I realized that he had been hit in the mouth. His mouth was bleeding and all of this. But like it really got me to think is like, dude, why would you like not have a leash on with this other guy that actually hit him? And one of the things that I did is I sat there with this guy and I'm like, hey, are you okay? And he's like, no, man, he got me good. And he's like, why the hell does this guy not have a leash on? And this guy comes swimming up and, you know, he's like, the older guy's like, hey man, like what happened? Like, why don't you have a leash on? And he's like, well, why are you swimming inside the wave? And he's like, I just got out here. Like, this is literally the first time I'm swimming out to catch waves. But it got me to think right away, is like, why is this guy blaming him for not wearing a leash for why he got hit? It's like, dude, if you'd have had your leash on, there's no way this guy gets hit and gets taken out and his mouth's bloody. But I started to think of, man, there's a lot of these unwritten rules in surfing. Like you can't be inside the wake or you can't be inside the surf. And I usually kind of hang out there because that's a lot of people fall off at that point. And then it's like, okay, now I can actually like catch this. But I watch people in surfing get pissed off like they own a wave. I watch people get frustrated out here, but here's this guy who just got taken out. Literally, he's bleeding. And I have this other guy who's actually like blaming him for being inside the wave, for getting hit. And then the guy's not taking responsibility for not having a leash. And I thought, man, like how often do we have in everything we do, these unwritten, expectations, these unwritten rules, even a dog, like having a dog on a leash is a rule, but once you take that dog off the leash, it's not about your dog, it's about protecting everyone else. And so when I started to think about this guy, I'm like, dude, listen, like the leash is not to protect you, the leash is to protect other people from actually getting hit. And the problem is now you're putting other people in jeopardy because I'm guessing that you're cool if you don't wear a leash, or that means that you're at a certain level. But just to watch a guy get taken out, to watch this guy who's coming out for, a surf session, to immediately on his way out get crushed by someone else's board because they weren't safe and because they weren't taking responsibility. But like, there's no rules written anywhere for surfing. Literally, there is not a rule anywhere written for surfing. And so I started thinking of, man, how many unwritten rules are there? How many times in our life have we, violated safety by not having a leash? And maybe it wasn't having a leash. Maybe it was in a relationship. And we have these unwritten rules for our spouses. And then we get pissed when, they don't follow them. We have, unwritten rules in marriage that go on both sides. Like our wives maybe are supposed to do something, for us if they stay at home. And yet, we put all this pressure on them to get all these things done. And yet we've never actually discussed what that is, but it's an expectation. It's an unwritten rule. And you have these in businesses too, where you expect employees to do shit, except you don't actually go over the rules. You just expect them to follow it. And yet they've never actually been established. And so I thought about, man, what if there was actually a post out right before you went out in the water and it had some rules listed? But there isn't any. And there probably never will be. But it got me to also think about this. When we have unwritten rules, two things literally happen. No one takes responsibility. And then we decide to blame someone else. And so in this case, the guy who didn't have the leash on, he took zero responsibility. And on top of it, he tried to blame the guy for actually what happened. And I watched this guy literally blame him while the guy's mouth is bleeding. And he sat there and he's like, hey, man, I'm sorry. But it just didn't feel like he really gave a shit. But I want you to think about this. In your marriage, we expect things on both sides. Men to do certain things, and we expect women to do certain things because there's unwritten rules passed down over generations. But I want you to look at your life and see where you are expecting people to follow these unwritten rules. Maybe it's in your marriage, maybe it's in your relationship, maybe you are surfing and you're listening to this and you're like, dude, I expect everybody to get off my wave and get out of my way so I can hit it the way I want. But think about this. In what is one way you can begin to get clear on these unwritten rules today? Maybe it's just talking to your spouse, saying like, hey, I've expected you to do this for a long time, but I really want to establish what we're both doing so we're on the same page. Maybe it's in your business. Maybe part of this is you getting on the same page as your employees. So there are no unwritten rules. There's only a list and an agreement of what everybody knows exactly what they're doing. But I challenge you today to get rid of your unwritten rules. I challenge you today to actually create an agreement that you have, that you can begin to establish with your spouse, you can begin to establish with your employees, and you can begin to establish with yourself, so you can take responsibility and stop blaming other people for your lack of results. And I want to thank you guys for being here today. If you guys are looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and so many others in the Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group on Facebook, where I'll be dropping daily habits to help you live to your full potential. Maybe you want to be one of our next case studies and begin living this habit-based lifestyle. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions, comments, requests, or you want to leave me a review. Contact me, Jesse at habitbasedlifestyle.com. Have a great day.